Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of the News Agent Podcast, where we'll be looking at what may be stopping landlords from choosing your agency. I'm Susie Lysett, Goodlord Senior Content Executive, and today I'm joined by Costas Frangeskou, our Director of Sales here at Goodlord. Welcome to the podcast again, Costas. It's the second time.
Yeah, thank you for having me back. I must have done something right for last time.
Well, exactly. I'd say that you have actually. For any of people that are listening that haven't listened to the other episode, it was all about how to grow a lettings agency quite rapidly. So I'd recommend having a listen of that one too. But by way of introduction, for those of you who didn't listen to that past podcast episode, I know that you've got around 17 years experience in the lettings industry, the property industry. Is that right, Costas?
Yep, started when I was 3. So yeah, that's correct. So 17
exactly.
years.
That was what I thought. Perhaps if you could just tell us a bit about that, where your expertise in the industry comes from.
Sure. So I joined the industry in 2005. Since then, I've worked for a number of providers in the portal space, in the insurance space, utilities, and obviously now at Goodlord, overseeing all the services that letting agents need and want to be able to complete a tenancy, everything from contracts to collecting payments all the way through to collecting rent. 17 years working on solutions, providing a number of different services, but probably the most valuable thing I've done over the last 17 years is listen and work with some of the best agents in the country, and steal lots of their good ideas, and look at what the successful agents do, and look at some of the mistakes that other agents make, and share those with my customers, and hopefully they see some value in that.
And share it on this podcast today as well. So
hopefully, yes.
Exactly. So let's get into kind of like the main topic of conversation. So why landlords might not be choosing your agency. Obviously, our aim is not to focus overly on the negatives. What we're here to do really is to try and suggest solutions. But I would suggest that there are almost two sides to this topic. That may be oversimplifying it quite a bit. But my suggestion is that you, as an agent, are hoping to get landlords to actually want to speak to you. And then the next hurdle that you've got to get over is getting them to say yes to your services once you have started that conversation. So let's look at the first part of that. How to get landlords to want to talk to you. I mean, Costas, what would you say are some of the top things that agents might be doing that could be putting off a landlord? And obviously, on the other side of that, what they could be doing to get them to want to talk to them.
So there's so many angles that you can take this from. Probably the things that I've seen, that I've learned from other agents. Some things is just as simple as making it easy for a landlord to know who you are and how to get hold of you. So, for example, I know agents that have had to change their boards, and for example, they have their initials on the board rather than their brand name. Therefore, landlords and even people vendors looking to sell or buy, they can't put 2 and 2 together because hold on, you've got initials on your board. Yeah, you've got your full name on the front of your agency. So just in some ways making it easy. Even car branding, the amount of agents that don't have the phone number or their website address on the car, but just have their agency name. Make it easy for people to actually be able to get hold of you. Not everyone's going to go away and Google you, but it might tempt them to give you a call or go onto your website if they see your car outside or in the local area going up and down each time. So there's little basic things around that perspective. I think everyone in the industry now is clear that trust is a big factor. And therefore, everything that you communicate, everything that you do, whether it's in person, through your website, trust should be the leading factor in how you present yourself, without a shadow of a doubt, from that perspective. But if we look to more detailed things like your website, things that I think are putting off landlords on websites. Right now, stock is a challenge, and one of the things that we're seeing from agents at the moment is they're leaving quite a lot of old stock on their websites. They don't want it to look bare. Don't blame them. But the one thing that we've seen is obviously rents have gone up anywhere between 6 and 20% in some areas over the last year, 18 months. So if you're showing stock and you're renting properties out for £200-300 less than today's value, landlords pick up on those things, and therefore either adjust the pricing if you still need to list those properties as let out, but don't give the impression that those properties are or the values that you achieve as an agent are far below the market value at today's rates.
Now, it seems that trust element, which you quite rightly said is very important, it does tie in quite strongly with the expertise, I guess, in that sense, that an agent's showing. If some of that information does seem to be out of date or not in line with the current markets, then it's perhaps a bit of a warning sign to landlords. And that's obviously not something that you want to be presenting on your website.
Yeah, and in terms of, making it easier for landlords to find you as well, obviously we talk about social media quite a bit. Social media can be very time consuming, or it can be quite easy to manage. The big tips for me there are, some of the tips I've learned from other agencies, promoting other local businesses. That's really simple to do. Liking them on your Facebook, mentioning them on different things. If you're mentioning local businesses in your area, chances are they'll like or mention you back. And they have followers, and their followers are people that live locally. So that's a quick and easy way in terms of getting your brand further out at a low cost and not being very time consuming. That's one, without a shadow of a doubt. The other one is obviously content can be quite difficult to create and be consistent with. But the reality is most agents will have suppliers that are pushing content or have content available for them that is bang on what's needed in terms of updating, communicating, and engaging and creating that trust with landlords. And therefore, if you don't know what your existing suppliers have available for you to use, adapt, rebrand, ask the question. Worst case scenario, they'll say nothing. But I think you'd be pleasantly surprised how much they can help you with that and make it a really easy job.
I think that is true. I mean, if you look across the industry, there is a lot of information coming out of lots of different sources. I guess on a similar track, looking at metrics and things like that, it's quite an easy way to bring those into your conversations and to onto your website, I suppose, to actually prove your value. I mean, are there ways like that? I mean, what would you say are the best ways for agents to prove their service levels, to make sure that landlords that are looking at the information they're putting out there, that they are sharing the right information that's really going to grab a landlord's attention?
Yeah, I think it's a really difficult one. I think it's a lot easier when you're in person, trying to portray that, because obviously you have a matter of seconds to grab someone's attention or stand out from what is a very busy market and competitive market at the moment. So I think that's quite a big challenge. But if you think about trust, if you think about, these are human beings, and we all buy because we associate ourselves with opportunities and stories that we hear. So how much of an approach should be all about, how amazing am I as a letting agent? Here's my history. I'm really successful. My service is better than the agent next door. In fact, when I go out and train agents, one of the things that I do is I ask them, if you could pick one USP within your business, and you're approaching me as a landlord, what is your USP? And I'll have a sheet of paper behind me that's turned over, and every single time it will be our service. And then I'll turn the sheet over and it would say our service. That's what every agent says. So if I've never used you before, how do I know which one of you are telling the truth? So get your customers to tell that story. Use real stories so that people can actually separate you from the ones that are just telling you that they have a great service, from the ones that can actually show you and have third parties help you with that.
I guess that reviews are quite an easy way to see whether an agent is providing that level of service that they are proclaiming on their website. I mean, how do you think that agents would be should go about getting reviews, and obviously making sure that that's using that in their marketing and using that to share the service levels about their agency?
I think agencies at the moment, I'm surprised by how many agents don't just ask the question, would you be happy to recommend us, or would you be happy to? I see you're on Facebook, or I see you would you be open to recommend us in any way, or write us a short write up? And you'd be amazed how many will say yes. So I think that's quite an easy one from that perspective. Beyond that, agencies should be surveying their customers, even if it's bad news. At least you know. So there should be, you should be sending out surveys. Setting up a simple survey through SurveyMonkey or any free services out there that you can use, and building that consistently in your business, just to understand what your customers really think and what they're saying, and what areas you may have to work on to become stronger as a business. So I think those are really simple things that you should be doing consistently. And then, the recommendations and the reviews will come naturally from that point.
No, it does make sense to use your existing landlords and your existing contacts to really bolster what it is that you already can provide. So it's definitely a resource there that agents can tap into. What about on the topic of trust? Obviously, this is one of the main factors, as you said, that landlords are looking for. They need to be able to trust the agent that they're working with. Obviously, we know that ROPA, the regulation of property agents, is on the horizon, and a lot of agents are starting to get qualified now, even in advance of those regulations coming into play. How important is having that type of qualification, that level of professionalism kind of demonstrated on the website? Do you think that's something that landlords are looking for?
I think it's extremely valuable. Whether you're buying whether you're looking for a service or you're buying double glazing, there's certain things that you want to see. Those kite marks do make a difference. But I think when you're communicating with a landlord, rather than just tell them what you're members of, tell them why you're members of and what that should mean to the landlord, what that should mean to them. What the process you've gone through, the hours or months of studying, the tests. It's not just something that you get for turning up or paying a fee. It's something that you have to strive towards and show that you are a credible option for them, and are there to look after them. You've done the hard work to make sure that they're in safe hands.
No, that makes complete sense. It's almost as if it's no longer really a competitive advantage to say that you have these qualifications. Is very much a necessity, really. It's something that landlords are looking for and wanting. Sure,
absolutely.
And obviously, we've talked about agency websites and their direct branding. Most agents would be using property portals as well. So the property listings themselves are one way that most landlords will presumably come into contact with agencies. I mean, is there anything there that agents could be doing better or implementing to make sure that landlords can know that they'll be doing the best job possible for them to advertise, to market their properties?
Yeah, obviously I come from a portal background, and I think one of the misconceptions, and I'm sure there'll be a few people listening to this that will disagree with me, but one of the misconceptions that I feel there is portals are only there to gain you inquiries. So they're only there for buyers and for tenants. I would absolutely challenge that from being on the other side and being able to look at the data and look at the inquiries that come through. Landlords look at the market in exactly the same way as tenants do. They are looking through the portals. They are comparing. They're looking for the next investment. They're looking to see how much their investment's worth. That's probably the main reason why they go on there. And once again, I think, for landlords that are looking to grow their portfolio, and if you're looking to try and open communications up with landlords in your area, one really simple way to do that on a portal, make it easy for a landlord. So if you've got a property that you're selling potentially, and you think that property is a kind of property that a landlord may be interested in, make it really easy. Make it stand out from the other 20, 30 properties on the page and list that property. Maybe in the first line, put something on there that says potential landlord property or a potential landlord investment. Because trust me, when a landlord's scrolling through a page and suddenly they're met with a line that says potential landlord investment, they will click on that property. And worst case scenario, they'll inquire and they might not be interested in it, but at least suddenly you've got the details of a landlord who's actively looking in your area and may own other properties in your area. So rather than just have a standard listing saying, no, this 3-bedroom house has 3 bedrooms, use the opportunity there to engage with the target audience that you want. And something else that I've learned from my days in the portal world as well is, and we're in a world at the moment where obviously stock is scarce, competition is growing, and the good agents at the moment are looking at how they can break into other pricing tiers within the market. So it may be that they have a ceiling price of maybe £1,200 per month within their area. Obviously, you can tell I'm a London boy. But there are plenty of properties at £2,000 plus that they're not able to break into. So looking at how they can use the portal to identify they are an agency that can work in that world. And that can be by even taking on a listing at cost. But if you do win one of those listings that might be slightly out of your area, but close enough, or at a price banding that you're not naturally considered of, market the hell out of it. Put it at the top of the page, put a banner around it, put some, fairy lights, whatever you need to do, but let people know that you are in that market also. Otherwise, you'll disappear from that opportunity as quickly as you got it.
It sounds like there's plenty of opportunities there in the portals then that agents can be taking on board. Perhaps just to kind of swing to the other end of the scale, I know that we've touched on reviews and so on, and obviously that applies to tenants as well, but how important is it to make sure that tenants are happy with your service too? How will that affect how landlords would obviously see or perceive your agency and your services?
Yeah, I think if we start with retention of existing landlords, and in this market at the moment, we have agents now where agents would normally focus a lot of their time and attention on new stock coming up, vacant stock coming available. There are a lot of agents now that are building plans, business plans around how they can take managed stock away from other agents. So I think it's vital at the moment that tenants receive a quality service. And once again, we all think we offer a quality service, but are you surveying? Are you asking when was the last time you spoke to them? I'd question how many agents actually know for certain rather than believe they do. So, if you keep your tenants happy, because if you're not keeping your tenants happy, they will go back. It will get back to the landlord. And if the tenant's constantly moaning about you, then that could be the landlord that has a conversation with another agent, or the property comes up for vacant and they may choose to maybe invite a second or third agency in to market the property alongside you, and they get to rent it out first. So I think it's key from that perspective that you keep your tenants happy, and you focus as much time and energy on them as you do your landlords. They are your customers also. I think from another perspective as well, it's amazing how many tenants are actually landlords themselves. I was quite shocked when talking to quite a few agents, and I've tested it with other agents, and there is a reasonable percentage of tenants that are also landlords, and agents have never really asked. So there is opportunities definitely there at the same time, and tenants will be, some tenants will become landlords in future, and hopefully most agents are here for the long run rather than the next 2 or 3 years. So it's all valuable. You already have their details. You're already in contact with them. You only need 1 in every 50 to become a landlord or promote you to a landlord for it to be a valuable exercise.
Now, that makes complete sense. And obviously, I wasn't really expecting any other answer than you should be keeping your tenants happy. But it's nice to hear the confirmation. And I suppose one aspect of this, which is always going to be in the background, but it's competitors, competition within the area for agencies. I mean, how can agencies ensure that they are keeping an eye on their competitors and making sure that they're ahead, making sure that they're, what information can they get from just observing their competitors?
Sure. Well, there's plenty of tools in the market that, whether it's through suppliers or tools that you can purchase that will give you a view of your market share, not necessarily a view of listings. It's not about volume, it's about the market share that you should be focusing on. So there's plenty of that out there that will help you understand, are you getting your fair share? And by fair share, if there's 10 of you in the local market and there's 100 properties that are being listed, have you got at least 10? That's your fair share. And do you believe you should have more or less based on the investment, the talent, and the brand that you've been able to develop to date within that marketplace? So I think the tools are definitely there to help with that. And then once you identify who's doing well, it's then to understand why. And whenever I've done this for agents, very rarely is it because they're the cheapest. It's more to do with how they position themselves, how they train their staff, how they promote some of the services and the language they use in those scenarios. So one probably example to help understand where I'm going on that is probably rent protection. The amount of agencies at the moment that say to us, "Oh yeah, none of my landlords ever asked about rent protection." No, we never asked. Yet we speak to an agent 2 doors down and they are winning new landlords because they are promoting, shouting out in the market that they have a great rent protection policy that will offer that protection that landlords want and need at an affordable cost. The reason why the agent is not hearing from landlords that don't want rent protection is because they're not marketing the fact that they do it. And therefore, those landlords aren't asking the question, they're just going somewhere else. So there's a lot of reasons why understanding what your competition is doing and why they're doing it, because it may be just simply you offer exactly the same, but they're just better at communicating.
No, that's also a very good point. It is very very important to know what's going out there and making sure that you keep your finger on the pulse really of what landlords are looking for. If they're going to another agent, then there must be a reason for it. So delving into what that reason may be, it makes sense to invest some time to do that. Right, I think those are some very good points on how to get landlords to actually engage with your brand and get them motivated to speak to you in the first place. I mean, I think making it easy for them to contact you, making sure that you have your contact details and so on there, making sure that they know to trust you. So I think that before we dive into some of the objections that landlords might raise once they're having a conversation with an agency, it's a good time to take a short break.
Do you want to stop wasting time on admin and jumping between different platforms to get just one job done? Do you want to focus on your agency's business goals instead? From automated offer letters and e-signing to online referencing and even rent collection, Goodlord can help your agency get rid of the admin-heavy parts of your lettings job in one integrated platform, so you can refocus on your business and your customers. Head to goodlord.co today to learn more. Goodlord, it's just that good.
Right, now let's, I think, turn and take a look at some of the objections. So you've done all of the hard work. You've got a landlord interested in your agency. They like what they see on your website, in your property portals. But obviously, once you start to have a conversation with them, there may be some objections that they raise. So let's look at why they may say no to your agency. Costas, do you have any overarching thoughts as to the main reasons that a landlord throws up as to why they may start to say no to an agency?
Yes, I'm not going to try and attempt to give any training or lessons on how to handle objections from landlords. I've never been an agent, and I'm probably not best placed to do that. But from training I've done with agents, the things that stand out for me is that agents know what objections they get because they get them time and time again. It can differ depending on what area, what kind of value properties you're working with, and the kind of the makeup of the tenants and landlords you're working with. But they know what objections they get time and time again. And what amazes me is that they don't take the time to actually sit back and review those objections with their team and train their team on how best to handle those objections, because they know how to handle them. Someone with the right answer is within the room, but actually taking the time to actually train maybe the more junior staff, less experienced staff, because the question is going to be asked. So why wait for it? And if you understand what objections you're going to get, because you get them time and time again, then there's an opportunity there for you to actually handle the objection even before it's asked. Imagine if you're the agent that can put somebody's peace of mind without them having to answer the difficult questions, how much trust and ability they have in that. So I think a lot of it is around training and understanding the objections that you get day in, day out, and being on the front foot from that perspective, if that makes sense.
No, that makes complete sense. And obviously, as you say, there's no point in making the same mistakes over and over again in the conversations. I suppose that one of the ways to handle objections in nearly every situation is just showing the value that you as an agency can provide. I know that it's obviously very competitive out there in terms of the agency fees. It always has been. I think that at the minute, with the fact that stock levels are so low, I suspect that there is becoming a bit of a race to the bottom in terms of agency fees. But if you can prove your value, then there's no need to try to drop your agency fees. I mean, do you have any tips around how agents can prove their value once they're in that conversation with the landlord? What are the things that they should be bringing out to say, this is the service we can provide and this is why you should be choosing us?
Yeah, and and once again, I think I know we've laboured the point of trust and we've laboured the point from that perspective, but actually, I think the first thing is actually challenging and understanding the landlord. Why are they asking those objections? Why are they asking for a cheaper fee? Some are asking for a cheaper fee because they're trying it on and it's standard. Others are asking because they haven't seen the value. So I think it's important when you're speaking to a landlord, rather than giving the typical 10, 15-minute speech about your service and your service and your service. There's a real opportunity there to actually step back and actually ask the landlord, what is it that why have you raised that question? Why is it that in particular that you asked me first? Have you had a bad experience with another agent, or do you know someone who's had that experience? So understanding from them first what that might be. It may be, do you guarantee my insurance? And why? Is it because you've been bitten before? Is it because you can't afford to pay the rent if someone else does? So understand what their concerns are, because then you can put your services into the arena where their concerns are, and therefore build that relationship with them. So I think that's one perspective, without a shadow of a doubt. Ask them what does a positive outcome look like for you. So I think understanding the landlord better is without a shadow of a doubt. We know that there are landlords out there that are always going to try and do it on their own. So I think when you're speaking to landlords, rather than tell them everything you do, ask them how are they going to handle things that an agent would normally do. So, things like viewings, check-ins, emergency work, dealing with current legislation requirements, making sure that if it's a HMO, that everything is within the legislative requirements needed to rent it out and protect themselves. A worst case scenario, if there is an eviction process, how they're going to deal with that as well. So I think rather than just telling a landlord, have a conversation with them, find out where they're coming from, and I think you'll find that a lot more landlords are on the same page as you, rather than you feel you're doing a great job by telling them how amazing you are, and then you walk away thinking, I've hit that one out of the park, and the landlord's thinking totally unaligned.
No, that does make sense. I mean, obviously, you need to have a conversation and understand what problems they're facing. There's no point in going in all guns blazing, talking about whichever section it may be that you think is going to be their main problem, if it turns out that actually it isn't, and you've just proved that you perhaps don't understand their business. You obviously need to understand their business or their single property that they're managing, and the issues that they're facing with that, to be able to present the right solutions to that.
Yeah, and you will have you will get better fees. You might not get the fee you want, but if you take that approach, what I can guarantee you is you have more opportunity of getting a better fee, if not the whole fee that you ask for.
Exactly. And I suppose that once a landlord has chosen your agency, then you have further opportunities in the future. Once you've established that initial contact, that initial relationship, even if it is just for one property, there are plenty of other opportunities down the road to expand on that at a later date, whether it's, upselling on particular products, whether it's moving on from let only to fully managed, whether it's just asking them whether they have any other properties in the future that they might consider investing in. Once they know you, it's should hopefully be a bit easier to have those conversations again in the future.
Sure, absolutely.
Well, then, Costas, I think that we've covered quite a bit of ground in terms of why a landlord may not be looking at a particular agency, but what they can be doing to counter that. Do you have any other top tips or anything that you think that we've missed in our conversation that we should touch on before bringing it to a conclusion?
I think the only area that having conversations at the moment is lots of agents looking outward at the moment. So they're looking for new stock. They're looking outside of their existing portfolio, and how much value there is if you take the time to look into your existing portfolio. Speaking to your existing landlords, you might be surprised how many of them have other properties that you weren't aware of, or even using your existing landlords to incentivize them to recommend others. Landlords usually know landlords. That's what I've always found, and therefore they're a great source to try and help you win new landlords. And I recommend that agents, depending on where you are in the country. But I was speaking to an agent in London the other day, and I said to him, they could easily offer up to £400 or £500 recommendation fee or a credit off the next tenancy for a recommendation, and they nearly fell off their chair. But when we went through the numbers and actually worked out what their cost of acquisition was, they were spending nearly £1,300 to acquire a new property. £400 was a drop in the ocean for them. It's probably the cheapest tool they could use to actually win their next landlord. And you only pay on success. So yeah, look at your existing portfolio. If you haven't spoken to your landlords in the last 6 months, please do. And even incentivize them, speak to their friends and family. It's a great source for winning new landlords or winning new stock from your existing.
That's a very, very good point. And I know that we've entitled this topic, why landlords may not be choosing your agency, but it is true that you have to always make sure that you're keeping your current landlords happy, make sure that you're continuing to have those conversations with them, and it will come back, and hopefully you'll have further opportunities with them in the future. Well, thank you ever so much, Costas, for taking the time just to come on and some of your ideas and your expertise. I think that there are some top tips in there that agents will be able to take away and maybe have a look at their own activities and see where they can see some new opportunities that they can implement.
No, thank you.